Hello chess fans! Today I want to show you a game I played around 2 years ago. So I think this game a really illustrative example of how chess psychology can sort of play into a chess game. So I started off with this move e4, my opponent went for g6. So I was expecting this move, so I decided to go for d4, bishop g7, and knight c3. And here I have known my opponent to either play the perk or what they played in the game, the pterodactyl. So I was prepared for this move, and I did sort of expect this move. And I played this really unpopular move, bishop e3. So already I think my opponent was out of theory because at first it just doesn't really look natural. Like you're taking with the bishop, usually you don't do that. And for example, one of the ideas after takes, if they block with a move like knight f6 defending their bishop, we have e5. And this has sort of become a little bit trendy. And here after this move knight h5, I know a lot of games here have gone with queen d2, but here this is nice move knight g2. And it's sort of like, wait, why are you playing knight g2? There's a threat to go g4. So here I think White's winning. There's a game here with d6, but then I think that after takes, we're threatening here, and if they take with the queen, something like takes, and knight b5 should be winning for us. So yeah, lots of tricks here. So instead of that, he went for queen a5, which is definitely the best move. You can also take, yeah, but again, yeah, knight f6. So here I went for knight f3, and here, again, he went for the best move, which is knight f6. And here I decided to go for queen d2, just getting rid of the pin and also defending my pawn. So that was the idea. Now, in case you're wondering, like, after knight e6, why don't you go e5? It's because of this move, knight g4. And then this is pressured, and this is pressured, and d takes e5 is coming next, so it's a bad position. So queen d2. Now, if knight g4, I think simple enough is knight d5. And then if takes, we're threatening here, and we're also threatening this pawn. So, again, here my opponent played the best move. So now, one of the main lines here is actually knight c6, which is just a horrible move after d5. I really don't understand why this move is played. After a move like knight d5, we can just develop, or we can go h3, and this knight is just going to be kicked away at some point after like bishop e2, castles, because at the moment after we go a3, the knight doesn't have to move because we're pinned. But yeah, this is a very bad line. But instead, my opponent went for knight f6, queen d2, c takes, and I went for bishop takes, which is already a very unpopular move. And I think that's the first. It's not a mistake. It's actually a good move, and it was actually part of my preparation at the time. But I think that this sort of goes into the first psychological mistake, which is I sort of did not play the game that I wanted to play. So I know myself at this time, I was a very aggressive player. I really like sacrificing, and I really like getting tactical and dynamic games. And basically, what I went for in my prep was a small advantage where I have a very small chance of losing. And in the game, we ended up getting the exact line from my prep, and I got the exact position I wanted, but I think it's just a mistake in preparation, because if you sort of like to play an aggressive game, a tactical game, if you like to play that, you shouldn't really be going for these positions where you're just going to get a dry game where, okay, maybe you're positionally better, but your opponent has played these sort of structures way more often than you. Okay, so this is the first mistake, I think, which is bishop takes. After takes here, we actually transpose to a line of the hyper-accelerated dragon after knight c6, but I'm just going to check the engine here. I'm pretty sure, yeah, this is a bad variation, because usually they wouldn't go queen a5. They would go castles and d5. So here we can go for this, and then after castles, we have this nice move, knight b3. And now we control this d5 square. And for example, after queen d8 castles, we have a very nice position because d5 is prevented. And after d6, we've got the move knight b3 for free. So yeah, this is a pretty bad variation of the dragon. And I do remember for some reason that I think you can't castle right away. No, that's not true. So yeah, so you should go knight b4 to avoid knight b3. Maybe even go knight b3 here, actually. Okay, yeah, but yeah, so that would be a bad variation of the hyper-accelerated dragon, and I think I really should have gone for this. I think my chance of winning there when we have this opposite colored side attack is much greater. And actually, I played this opponent again just last year, and I actually managed to win that game, even though we had around the same rating. I think we were both like 22-40 at that point. But the reason why is because we got a very, very tactical and chaotic game where I think that it plays more into my strengths than my opponent, because I think my opponent is pretty clearly, from this game at least, quite a good positional player. Okay, so instead of that, I went for bishop takes, which I think, yeah, again, it's a really, really interesting idea. The idea is actually to take and then go knight d5. And after knight c6, I did go for that takes, and then now knight d5. It's a really interesting idea, and you can also see this sort of idea in the Maroczy bind when the pawn's on c4. The idea is that usually that after takes, the king would be castled. Takes, we have the intermezzo check, attacking the king on g8, and then after he takes back, we like take back the queen, and then he has this weak pawn. This is the same idea, except yeah, now both I'm threatening here and I'm also threatening the bishop, so he has to defend both. Now the only move in my preparation here was actually castles, and after takes, I had bishops d4 to meet rook e8 with bishop d5. And this was sort of the last move of my prep, and I think I annotated my prep, and I think I gave this position as like pretty much white can never lose. Just a very nice position. F5 is probably going to come at some point and you're going to have to take, but again, you just have this weak pawn to play with. You can probably trade one pair of rooks and then try to target this pawn somehow. And the engine gives like plus 0.7, plus 0.8. So yeah, just a pretty nice position to play. But instead of that, my opponent played rook b8, which I think is a very interesting move. It's not necessarily better than castles. It's not necessarily worse. I thought it was better. I think human practically wise, it's probably better. But yeah, in the game I was already a little bit shocked, so I took. And in the game I just started feeling really bad. I just really started not liking my position at all, because I thought that my opponent had pretty much improved on the castles line, because now they get king e7. But this is not really true at all. But here apparently I shouldn't really go for bishop here and bishop here anymore, because he's getting d6 too easily with the king defending it on d7. So I went for rook d1, just eyeing the open file. This is a good move. King e7. And here already I actually made the first bad move. And I think this is very instructive for anybody who's around my level, or around my level at this time even, to see like what would you do in this position. It's really not clear, because I mean the engine gives plus 0.5 and you're like clearly slightly better here, but like how do you prove it? Like what is your plan as white? And here I know a lot of players would play the move that I did, which is I think just a bad move. Now here, I really considered this move king e3 for a long time, with the idea to go d6, knight d4. But in the end, I decided to reject this because of a move like here. And then I thought the king kind of just doesn't belong on the file. And apparently the best move is to go king c1. And after d6, we're going to see like rook d2. We're going to see a similar idea. So the best move is to go bishop e2. And this is, I think, very difficult to play. The idea is actually just after d6 to go rook d2. Let's say bishop e6 and then rook d1. And then you actually just have a very, very easy to play position. And black can't really do much. For example, if they play a move like b5, I think that already maybe g3, knight d4, maybe even knight d4 right away. Seems pretty good. And then they just have this backwards pawn here, and we've traded a knight off. Or even this move g3. In which case, like, let's say they continue pushing with a5, we can go for b3, and let's say they go for b4. At some point, we can go for the knight h4, f4, f5. This is another idea. So I think that this is sort of the best plan, but I decided to go for bishop c4. And bishop c4 is just not the right idea here, because first off, I run into a possible b5 in the future, and second of all, also my bishop is not good on d5. Like, my knight would be good on d5, but now I can't even go knight d5. And after d6, I realized that he's going to go bishop g4 and just take this and then go knight e5, and then how do I get rid of the knight on d5? Like, I don't know anymore. So again, I'm just starting to freak out here. I'm starting to get really nervous. I'm like, oh, I played a really bad move. Here the best move is actually bishop e2, just to go back to that plan. But it's not like I'm going to play bishop e2 after I just played bishop c4, you know what I'm saying? I didn't see that move at all. So again, I played a very bad move, which is h3. And now this is, again, just a very bad move. It stops bishop g4, but then it allows knight e5 now with this fork. And now I should really go back to bishop e2, and then, you know, after takes, I don't think I'm even better anymore. Probably after bishop e6, I'm probably still better, but he's going to be able to get like a quick b6, let's say rook c8 with f5 coming and d5 in the center. He's going to get some activity at least. And now he doesn't even have a clear weakness, and my bishop is horrible here. So, I mean, I didn't do this. Instead, I took. Like, reasoning that, okay, if he takes here, I just have the 3 on 2, which, okay, at least this position I can pretty clearly see that maybe white's slightly better. But then he took this way, which is, again, the best move. And now it's like just from a lower rated player's mind, basically, as I was at the time, I basically thought, oh, this structure is good for me, right? If we get this type of position, I have this control over d5, and he doesn't have anything clear. But I think one thing that I didn't really understand at the time, is basically, I think many players overrate, for one, the 3 on 2. I think the 3 on 2 is incredibly overrated. Unless you're in a king and pawn endgame, which then, okay, then it might actually be winning if you have the 4 on 3 and the 3 on 2. I think in all other positions, like 3 on 2 is very overrated. And also this backwards d pawn is also very overrated. Here, black is going to start expanding on the king side, and my queen side is also going to be weakened by b4, b5. So it just seems like a very, very unpleasant position, and I ended up playing it as such. I went king e3. Maybe here I should go a4 to stop b5. That was probably better, but he went f4, f5. And then here again, I have a very nice move, f4, just to try to trade all the pieces in the center. I think I was probably worried about something like this. No, I'm not worried about that, sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure what I was worried about. Maybe takes. Yeah, I have no idea. But f4 was a very strong move, maybe to get the advantage even, because he's going to have to try trade some of these pawns, and then my structure might actually be better. But instead I went for f3, and already this position is very unpleasant. With all my pawns on light squares, me having a light squared bishop. This pawn is backwards, but it's very easy to defend with just one rook and the king. So bishop d5 here. I went c3. I don't want to really go c4. I'm pretty sure I didn't want to go c4 because then this bishop has no mobility, but even this is probably better than what I did. For example, like b5 ideas at some point in the future. Takes, bishop takes, and now he controls the only open file. Maybe he should have gone, yeah, maybe before b5 he should go rook c8 or something. So instead I went c3 here, a3. Again, a3 is just pretty useless. I should really be going for this move f4, but of course, you know, I didn't play so good this game and I completely missed his ideas. So now again, maybe f4 is now too late because there's some ideas of b4 and rook c4 in some positions. So rook ac8, now b4. Again, I think my opponent now actually should just wait and go for f4. All my pawns are on these light squares, so he can probably just march his king in. And I actually can't do anything. And then go for like g4, g5. Or maybe just go for g4, g5, h5 just right away and then create a weakness on g3. And try to target both sides of the board. But my opponent didn't do that. He tried to rush things a little bit. But now after king d2, which is an accurate move, if I were to go here, I think he can do something like bishop b5. And now if bishop d2, if he trades all the pieces, he can come in on this side. So that's why I went king d2 instead. And then here he went f4, which again, I think this is maybe, okay, maybe f4 is a good move, but again, maybe now it's too late. I'm getting some counterplay. I took here, he took, I took, and then he went bishop b5. And then here in the game, I was just really distraught. I thought I was just losing because he's just going to go bishop f1 and I'm at least losing a pawn. Granted, I won this b4 pawn. And yeah, I was just extremely demotivated. This was the last round of the tournament and I didn't have any chance of winning either. So I was just feeling very bad and I ended up, you know, playing the best move, h4. And after bishop f1, king d2, king d8, believe it or not, actually, in this position, I actually resigned. And yeah, it's a really, I think, instructive thing about my mentality, which is that in games, one thing I learned is that when I'm losing, I start feeling very stressed. I start feeling very much in a bad mood. When I start losing, I just start basically just throwing the game away. Like once I'm losing, I'm probably going to lose the game because I just start playing very bad moves. And I think this is one game where I was finally able to try and bounce back from this. I still think this is a problem in my own chess. Like every time I'm losing a game, I always end up blundering it, making it super easy. But yeah, here I ended up resigning, and it's just because I just completely miscalculated. After bishop e6, bishop g2, here I could go king e2, threatening to trap the bishop. And for example, I think what I was worried about is something like this, and then I didn't see any way to get past. And if I try to block him, maybe he can create a pass pawn here with g4 at some point. But here actually I have here. I was worried about h5, but here I can just go bishop back to e6 and then go here. And I'm actually completely winning. So that was the first thing I missed. The second thing I missed is not takes there, but instead maybe a move like king c7. Let's say king e1. Now bishop, let's say a6. Bishop, I don't know, wherever, or king wherever. King b6. And now I thought, okay, maybe he's just, you know, getting his king in here. He's going to grab this pawn, and then this pawn I'm losing. Even though there I'm not even completely losing. Maybe I can draw that somehow. But here I just missed it. I can just stop him. And if he goes bishop b5, I go here. If he keeps his bishop on this diagonal, I go here, and he stopped. So he has just no way to break through, and it's such an easy draw that I actually cannot believe that I resigned here. Like, resigning is such a terrible move. And yeah, it's a really big lesson. I think that one thing that coaches always tell kids is that they shouldn't resign because many kids resign too early. Like, clearly I resigned way too early here. I'm not even sure I saw bishop e6. Maybe I didn't even see any of this. And I saw this position and I was getting very sad. But even this position here is a draw, which is the craziest thing because I can do that same thing of blocking the bishop and he can't create a passed pawn. So yeah, I think a very instructive game about my mentality. Basically, when you think you're losing, you have to just sort of buckle down and try to make it as difficult as possible, and don't get these bad thoughts in your head of, oh, I'm gonna lose this and that. Second thing I made mistakes in this game is sort of letting the ball roll into my opponent's direction. Like after I made one bad move, then I couldn't realize my mistake. I was just like hard set on that's the move I made. I can't just go back bishop e2. No way. Even though that's, pretty clearly the best move. And the third mistake is just preparation. Like you shouldn't go for, if you like to play aggressive, like play aggressive. Especially when your opponent plays a c5. Like my opponent gave me a very easy opportunity to opposite side castles and start attacking him, but no. I decided that I want to play this endgame where I'm slightly better, which is probably what a grandmaster might do, but yeah, just definitely an objective mistake. And I think that also the knight b3 variations give white a bigger advantage. So yeah, that's it in today's video, guys. If you like this video, learn something from this video, please remember to leave a like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you guys next week for another video.